So I wasn't there for the advent of the television. I've heard rumors that it was a pretty monumental moment. Was anybody? Maybe you don't want to answer this question. Does anybody remember not having a television and then suddenly having a television in your house? Do you remember that moment? You've got a few hands. Thank you for being brave. I've heard good things about that moment. I wasn't there though. I wasn't there for the advent of the television, not the invention of it. Right? Not the moment where the technology was invented and became available to put into a television and then those things became, made and sold, but like the moment it landed in your house, in your family room, or in your living room, or in your basement, or in your bedroom, like wherever it was sitting, like a reality for you. Like every day when you came home from school, like there it was just sitting ready for you. I wasn't there for the advent of the telephone. Won't ask if you were either. I've heard good things. But I was there for the advent of this telephone, this phone, right? I remember the advent of the smartphone. And again, like not the invention of it, not the moment where the technology was created. I wasn't there for that. And I wasn't there when Steve Jobs stood up and announced this particular phone, the iPhone. Like I wasn't there for that in California or at the time wherever it was, I think there, when it was announced. But I was there for its advent, for its arrival in my own life, in my family's life. It was my brother who brought the first iPhone into our household. And I remember thinking, that dude's 4.5 years younger than me. How did he get an iPhone before me? But I was there for its advent, and I don't know about you, but like this thing has changed everything. And I think the jury's still out on whether it's a good change or a bad change. But it does change everything, right? Like the modern day computer in your pocket that ensured that I would forever win the constant argument I had with my math teacher. When am I ever going to need to do math in real life? No more, thanks to Steve Jobs. Like, that's it. Like, I don't have to do that. Its arrival changed my life. It changed everything. And we talk about the season around Christmas, the Christian season of Advent, as a season of preparation. And it is. This is wonderful season of preparation where we get to turn our hearts and our minds and our houses, like the way we decorate this building, all of it points us toward Christmas. And we get to prepare and think about and eventually do some shopping, and we get to ready ourselves for that season. And it is. It's a season of preparation. It is a season of waiting. It's a season of wonder. It's a season of anticipation and expectation about what is to come, but it's also more than the sum of those things. Advent, at its core, and even the word itself, Advent, speaks to the arrival of something. For Christians, it's the arrival of Jesus. God's arrival in the world in human form. God with us, God for us. God's arrival in the world in a distinct way and for a distinct purpose, to rescue humanity, to save humanity from sin, to restore what has been broken. It's not the beginning of God. It's not like God's invention or God's beginning, and it's not the first chapter in the story, far from it. It's not the last chapter either, but it is God's arrival in Jesus in the form of a baby and then a human being. And it's an arrival or an advent that is meant to change everything. See, the season of Advent, for those of us who call ourselves followers of Jesus, it's a season where each one of us, again, we get to think about the birth of a baby that would change the world, that did change the world. But we get to think about it in a way, consider it in a new way, or in maybe a way that for us causes us to ask the question, have I allowed it to change my world? Like Jesus' birth changed the course of human history. And you don't need to be a Christian to think that or believe that or see it. You don't need to call yourself a follower of Jesus to understand like something happened. We're still talking about this guy, like something changed in that moment. But the Advent season, the season of Christmas, it gives us this unique opportunity once again to just say, has it changed everything for me and for you? Have you allowed Jesus' arrival to change your life and to change the way that you interact with the world, your family, your community, your friends, your colleagues at work, the way you view people, and even the way you view yourself? Has it changed the way you look for hope? Has it changed where you find peace and where you find joy and how you love? You allow yourself to love and to be loved. Like these longings that each of us have as human beings created into us, these longings for hope, something to work toward, meaning, for peace, this settledness deep in your soul, for joy and for love, to know and to be known, to love and to be loved, like these things created in you. Advent, the arrival of Jesus, is meant to change them all. And maybe it is because we just brought little Elizabeth home, thank God, and again, thank you, church, for praying. Every time I buckle one of my kids into their car seat for the first time, and some of you have had this experience, a little teeny tiny, like 5-pound baby, into a car seat that looks way too big for them, and then the nurses come in and they check to make sure you've done it correctly, like even if it's your third time, we just want to make sure that you haven't forgotten what's going on here, and you place that car seat in your car and you drive home at like 22 kilometers an hour. It changes everything for parents, no matter how many times it happens. This little kid, right, can't walk, can't talk, can't feed themselves, can't see color, like entirely dependent on mom and dad, still changes everything about our lives. And that's the hope of Christmas. It's this baby born not just to change the lives of Mary and Joseph, his parents, but every single human being who has ever and ever would live, to bring hope and peace and joy and love. That same baby would grow up and in his early 30s would say this about peace. Sylvia and I, we didn't get together and decide on a passage before you shared, but peace I leave with you, my peace I give you, Jesus says. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. So I don't know about you, but I think sometimes it's easy to think about hope and peace and joy and love like when you're looking at a baby in a manger, or maybe like images of Jesus as an infant born into a world. Like we look at it and it is nice and it is cute and it kind of puts together as this neat little clean package, but that's not the reality of Jesus' birth, and it's not the reality that Jesus was born into in the world. Jesus says, do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. That command, it's one of the most often spoken commands in the New Testament. Some form of do not fear. Do not be afraid. Even to Jesus' mother, Mary, especially to Jesus' mother, Mary, do not be afraid. I bring you good news, said the angel. You're going to give birth to a baby. And the reality of Jesus' birth is that it was into a moment of trouble and of fear. Messages from angels, messengers of God, often seen as negative, as warnings, as potential and probable signs of punishment. Like people had been waiting and longing for a Messiah, the Savior, one who would rescue them. And here comes this angel, fear not. Here comes Jesus who says, my peace I give to you. Isaiah describes the moment like this. He said, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and the last one, Prince of Peace. He will be one who brings peace into the world. And again, it's easy for us to read that passage, and maybe you've read it before, and maybe you've read it every Christmas for what feels like your entire life. And I think one of the things we do is we say, listen, the people walking in darkness, hey, they've seen a great light. Let's celebrate that light. And we should. Those living in the land of deep darkness, right? A light has dawned. Let's celebrate the light, and absolutely we should. And it's easy then to say, hey, for unto us a child is born, to us a son is given. And we are right there again in the stable or in the manger, in the house, the guest room where Jesus was born as a baby. And it's easy for us to forget that I know Isaiah says there is a season where you will be walking in darkness. There's a season where you will be living in a land of deep darkness. And it's only into those seasons of darkness and of deep darkness that light matters, that it breaks in. Light needs to break into something. It needs to break into darkness. By the time Jesus was born, it's said that God had been considered to be silent for almost 400 years. Malachi, if you read through the Bible, end of the Old Testament, Malachi had prophesied about what he called the great and awesome day of the Lord, and it kind of has this picture, and it's going to look one way or another. It's going to look good or it's going to look not so good. And he says, listen, like that day is coming, and then nothing. This prophet who had spoken on behalf of God and this long line of prophets who had spoken on behalf of God to the world just went silent. And for almost 400 years, silent. Until John the Baptist began preaching again in the wilderness. He says, get ready. It's coming. I know it's been a long time. I know it's been a long season, and I know maybe it's even been a long season of darkness. But God is going to do something again. I don't know if you feel this, but like 400 years is a long time. It's about 4 times longer than I hope to be around. Like if I live to see 100, great. That's it. Thank you. Like send me to Jesus. Like it's a long season. And seasons of darkness tend to feel like that, eh? They tend to feel long. And they tend to feel like they're going to be and continue to be long. 400 years is a long time for that darkness to creep in. And metaphorical, psychological, spiritual, whatever it is, darkness, emotional. Questions like, will God speak again? Wanting to hold on to a promise, like, God, you spoke of one who was going to bring peace. You spoke of one who would come. You spoke of one who would move into our world and into our hearts and into our minds, into our bodies, into our souls, into our spirits, like that there would be peace, that there would be peace between enemies. We're waiting. And it's into that moment of waiting that Jesus is born. It's into that wondering, it's into that uncertainty that then Jesus begins to speak. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. My peace I give to you, Jesus says. And it's not peace like the world gives. It doesn't have the characteristics of the peace that the world gives. It is something different. And not only that, but Jesus says, I'm going to give it to you. It is on offer for you in a way that is different than the world gives. I mean, what does peace look like? What is the peace that the world has on offer? I mean, maybe it's cessation from war. It's the end of war. And maybe when you are sitting there praying for peace and you turn on the news and you see violence, and you see wars, and you see more wars, and even rumors of wars, you begin to pray for peace, an end to war. And it is. And maybe for you, and again, I'm speaking from experience here, but it's like in the middle of the night, and you can't get any quiet or rest or tranquility. And so you pray for peace. Just a moment of it. And it is. Maybe it's nations agreeing to peace until one breaks the agreement. Maybe it feels like peace in our world and in our time and in our season right now is tenuous at best. I don't know, but I get this feeling that peace feels fleeting or feels like it's ever always a little bit escaping. I played in a charity hockey tournament over the weekend, and with Alex. And I think somebody forgot the charity part of the hockey tournament. So it's a charity, it's a fundraiser. It's all meant to raise money for a very good cause. You get an NHL player, an ex-NHL player on your team. It's great, it's fun. Some people forget that they're not the NHL player. Anyways, it's a long story short, but I didn't have to play more than one game there to see like anger boiling over. One guy thought it'd be a good idea to try to fight an ex-NHLer. Anger. It was not a good idea. Anger. And it wasn't me. just to say, for the record. It wasn't Alex either. For the record. It was just anger for the best cause, right? Like this for some people, this incredible moment and anger boiling over. Maybe like you're driving and like a sideways look. Like I don't like looking out my window anymore at the driver sitting beside me. Like sideways look, there's anger. Honks that turn into like full-blown road rage, or like neighbors fighting over property lines or whatever it is. It feels like we're in a season where we need peace. War. Multiple places. Right? We need peace. And in our own lives, I know you need peace too. Jesus' birth, and this is the hope, Jesus' birth announced peace to the world. Not in a way that the world gives, not in a way that the world has to offer, not in a way that we give between people, right? Well, the angels announced it like this. They were shepherds, and they're in fields. They're keeping watch over their flocks, and the angel of the Lord appeared to them. The glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. So they're terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all people. Today, in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in clothes and lying in a manger." Suddenly, a great company of the heavenly hosts appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests." Favor and peace. Grace and peace. That was how Jesus' birth was announced to the world. Grace and peace. And it's grace and peace that aren't found in negotiation, aren't found in exchanges, aren't found in trade, aren't found in relationships that we have to tenuously navigate. Peace found in a person, in the presence of Jesus. The Bible talks about peace and actually even speaks to peace in the language, how it's written as far more than just an end to conflict. It's an end to conflict, and it's an end to conflict inside of yourself. It's an end to war, and it's an end to war inside of yourself. It is wholeness and goodness and tranquility and calm, with others and inside of yourself, between you and God. Peace with others, peace with ourselves. Because at the end of the day, it's rooted in peace with God. The way of peace, the gospel writers say, when talking about salvation, what God has on offer. Peace on the condition of who God is, and on God's mercy, and on God's grace. Peace not on the conditions that we put on it. Not if someone holds true to their word, but peace simply because of who God is. You, me, we're challenged. I think we're encouraged to find our peace in the person of Jesus. And then from there to begin living differently in the world. Thomas Merton has a great quote on peace. He says, "Instead of hating people you think are war makers, hate the appetites and the disorder in your own soul, which are the causes of war. If you love peace, then hate injustice, hate tyranny, hate greed. But," he says, "hate these things in yourself, not in another." And I think it's reflection like that and peace like that that causes us to go back over and over and over again to a God whose birth was announced by grace and peace. It is God's favor toward you. It is his peace for you, peace between God and you, that allows you to live into peace day after day, regardless of the situation and circumstances of your life. Where do you need peace today? Where do you need peace this season? Maybe you're living in a season of peace, and so to you, I would say, where do you need to bring peace this season? How might you become a peacemaker, as Jesus says, as we move toward Christmas?